Hello, everyone. I am Tenitria Williams, and welcome back to Minding My Mental Health. If you watch us, you already know what I want you to do, but I want you to hashtag live. Let me know where you're watching from. So hashtag and then put where you're watching from if you're watching us live. I also want you to share this video to your story, to your page, to any groups you are a part of. I want you to help me get the word out to other people, as I am also about to do that as well. And if you're watching the replay, you will know you're watching the replay because it won't have the word live at the top in a red box. That's cool. Just hashtag replay. And again, let me know where you're watching from. I'm going to take a moment to do the same thing and share this video because I want a lot of people to watch this because I'm excited to have my guest today. Oh, okay, there we go. I'm going to share this to some groups I'm a part of. Kim, feel free to share this to your page as well.
Yes.
And then if you know of any friends, you can feel free to tag your friends and let them know that they are encouraged to come and join us in this conversation. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get started. So again, today we are talking about the road to recovery, right? We've all heard about addictions. We know that it is something that so many people, I didn't bring a lot of stats to today's episode. I probably should have brought a few stats. But we do know that it is something that impacts a lot of people, but that does not have to be the end of your story, right? And so what I wanted to do was bring someone on who has overcome and kind of walk through this journey. Someone that I know that I thought would be really, really amazing and share their story. And if you know Kim, you know that she is just a sweetheart person. And if you don't know Kim, you should follow her on social media and all those things to get to learn more about her. So I'm going to actually allow Kim to share her own journey. Kim, welcome to Minding My Mental Health. I appreciate you so very much for coming and sharing with the audience. How about you introduce yourself? Kind of tell us about yourself personally, professionally, kind of whatever you want to share that we should know before we get into these questions.
Hello, Tenitra. Thank you so much for having me today. I'm so excited to be here with you. My name is Kimberly Dennis. I go by Kim. I am a wife. My husband is Shun Dennis. We have three amazing boys, Demetrius, Desmond, and Joshua. I am a financial analyst, but my passion is being CEO of the Mocktail Experience. And that company was actually birthed out of my sobriety journey. So, and I'm a believer.
Awesome. I did not know that's what you did for a living, Kim. I had no idea. No, I did not know that. So again, I'm so glad you are here. Just get into your story, if you will. Kind of telling us about when you began to drink, what led to it. Was it things you saw in your family? Kind of just give us a little history about your journey.
So my journey, 16 years in March, praise God.
Okay, can you say that again?
I started drinking when I was, Can you hear me now?
Yes. We can hear you.
Okay. Hopefully Hopefully it'll act right. Are we good?
We're good.
Okay. So 15 years, March, and I started drinking when I was really young. I remember even early teens, taking drinks of beers and wine coolers and different things like that. But by the time I was 15, I was drinking, I was clubbing, I was, all the way out there. And let's see, I think drinking was just a part of our culture. It was just something when there were parties, it was just around family functions, it was around. That's just what people did, right? When they gathered, they drank. My mom was a heavy drinker until she had me. She didn't really talk much about drinking in her journey with alcohol, but they tell me that when she got pregnant with me, she stopped drinking. So I never knew my mom to be a drinker. How far into her pregnancy, how far into knowing did she stop drinking? I'm not sure. But I know that she was a drinker. My sisters, they're not, drinkers, nothing like that. It was just me. So I don't know if I would say that something like that was hereditary. But I know that I began drinking at a young age. And I think I was about 26, 27 when I had my last drink. And so honestly, I didn't even realize that I had a problem until my mother passed. And so when she passed away, I was just overcome by so much grief, just felt abandoned, all those things. And so that definitely pushed me further into my drinking.
So, did siblings drink as well, or were you the only person? Or kind of tell me about that.
My sisters drank, but they didn't drink like I drank. You know what I mean? And I was really the one who went out a lot. I was always in the clubs. I was always partying. I was just, I feel like I might have been rebellious because I was the youngest. All of my sisters, my three sisters are much older than me, so they weren't really in the house. So I think it was just my way of here by myself. My mom is older. I'm just going to go out and do what I want to do, kind of thing.
Gotcha. So, what were some of the impacts of the drinking? You said you didn't really know it was a problem until like the specific thing. What were the signs you started to see that it was a problem? I think she's froze on us.
Yeah. So it's when I
Okay.
actually would need,
You said I don't know if you were talking, Kim. You were frozen for a minute.
I don't know why my internet is being so difficult today. Can you hear me?
Yes. Now go ahead.
I was saying that my drinking, once my mom passed away, I realized it was bad when I needed a bottle of wine just to go to sleep.
Mm,
Right. So it was even 2 o'clock in the morning, right? And I was just like, okay, I have to get to sleep and get and go to work tomorrow. I have to do all the things. And so the bottle of wine would be the thing that would help me to go to sleep. And so, I was just like, yeah, that's not normal. I don't think that's normal, Kim.
so, what was it that helped you to say, I don't want to do this anymore?
So it was God. It was all God. Because I've always been in church. I've always been involved in church. Even when I was hanging out and drinking heavily, I was still showing up on Sunday. I was still, in the choir. I was still involved. I was still doing all the things.
Hmm.
Um, And so I had started, posting more on social media. I think back then it was MySpace or something. And I was, encouraging people and posting little prayers and different stuff like that. And I was actually in the club, and people would come up to me and they would be like, "Thank you for your post. It encouraged me." Or they would ask me to pray for them, like in the club. And I'm like, okay, right? Because I'm in here with my drinks, like, and they're asking me these things. And so I remember going home one night, and I was drunk, and I was just bawling. I was just crying. And I was like, God, I know that this is not what you desire for me. I don't even know the whole plan. I just know that by drinking, I don't have the clarity that I need to
Mm,
even understand what you desire for me to do, right? I
yeah.
don't even have that. And I just cried out to him and asked him to take, the taste of alcohol from me. And he did.
Wow. Because what I see a lot of times when dealing with when I have clients who are struggling with um, alcohol abuse or alcohol addiction, oftentimes there's a struggle because they don't see themselves as addicted because they're not what we call at that low point, meaning they're still functioning very well. They go to work, they maintain their image in the community for the most part. But it is those little small things, like you said, where I have to do this in order to get up to function, or I have to have these drinks to be able to sleep, and those types of things. What would you say to someone who says, it's not that bad for me because I'm not on the street? I'm not, what would you say to that person who's still functioning very well, but they need that alcohol to sleep, or they need that alcohol to get through stress? They need that alcohol. What would you say to those people?
I would say, let's see, the first thing, when you go out, can you go out and not have a drink? When you go to, even going out dancing with some of your friends, do you feel like you have to have a drink? When you are having a party at the house and you're having people over, do you feel like you have to have a drink? When you go to a restaurant, do you automatically feel like you have to order a glass of wine or have to order?
Okay. You were breaking up there for a moment. But what I heard was,
That I, oh, for me, that was something that I struggle with, right? If I couldn't go out somewhere and not drink. That wasn't an option. That was not an option for me, right? If I was going to be out somewhere, I was going to be drinking, and I didn't know my limit, right? I didn't have a limit, right? It was like, okay, if I drank and I started to feel, I started to feel it, I was getting a little drunk, I was going to keep drinking, right? I didn't necessarily have a limit. And so, go ahead.
no, I was just going to ask, what were some of the adverse or effects of the drinking on relationships or in your life?
So, on my relationships, I would say the biggest impact was my relationship with my mom, right? Because I felt like she was being very judgmental, right? When I didn't see it as she doesn't know how to be here, she's a for me, she can see, the path that I'm going down. I didn't see that, right? So there was a lot of annoyance, there was a lot of rebellion, there was frustration, even anger sometimes, because I'm like, why are you trying to say that I have a problem? Why are you trying to say I can't go out and hang out? Like, what's the problem? And so I didn't see that, right? I only saw I want to go out and have a good time and have these drinks. I didn't see what she could see.
Do you feel like the judgment was internal, or were you, when you look back, you're like, no, she was really being judgmental, or were you struggling because you were kind of judging yourself, if that makes any sense?
I think it appeared to be judgmental to
Hmm.
me because I didn't understand she was afraid for me. I don't think she was intentionally being judgmental. I think she was trying to stop me from the train wreck.
Okay, y'all, I need y'all to pray for Kim's internet so we can get all her good answers because I know she's got great answers. And we're not catching all of it through some of the internet stuff. What are some boundaries, Kim, that you had to implement to keep that sobriety after you said, I made this decision, God help me, but now I have to walk it out? What were some of the boundaries that you implemented?
So the boundaries that I implemented, um, it was saying that I knew there were, friends and family that I would go out with, but I couldn't go out with them, right? I had to say, I can't go to clubs, I can't go to bars. I couldn't even go out to a sit down restaurant with, certain family members and friends because I knew that I would want to drink. And
Mm,
so I had to create that boundary. And I know initially because I didn't have the skills that I have now to communicate, what was happening in that moment. I didn't know how to articulate that. So it was just, hey, do you want to go out? No, no, I'm not going out. That kind of thing instead of saying, hey guys,
yeah,
I've decided that I'm not going to be drinking, so I'm not going to be hanging out. Eventually I was able to articulate that, but initially I didn't have the language because I didn't know how everyone was going to take it. But once I was able to articulate that, they understood, right? They absolutely understood. So I was thankful for that.
did you deal with a lot of loneliness during that time, like feeling isolated because you weren't able to, or not able, but because you chose not to go out and do those things you were accustomed to doing? And how did you deal with it if you did have loneliness?
Yes, there were some times when I felt lonely. Absolutely. And in those moments, I started reading more scripture. I started reading more. I definitely had a stronger, deepened relationship with God. That's when I started, having more of a personal relationship with Him. Also, I did things that, I could do, right? I spent more time with my kids. We went to my sister's houses and we hung out there. I did things with the people that I didn't feel like I had to be that Kim, right? I
Mm,
didn't have to drink with them, right? So I think that's very important that when you are going through any changes like that, you
yeah.
surround yourself with a community, with a tribe, with people who are going to respect those decisions, right? I had to be with the people who were going to respect my sobriety and that I felt comfortable around not feeling like I had to drink.
Yeah. So what kind of mindset shifts did you have to take in order to be able to walk through that journey?
Mm. Realizing that, you know, it's okay to be with yourself, right?
Mm,
I did not like being alone. I needed noise. I needed things always happening around me. That's what I felt like I needed. And so what I learned through my sobriety journey is that I like quiet.
mm.
I don't need all of that noise. I am okay with my own company. I'm okay with that. And I wasn't always okay with that.
I love that you said that. Sometimes when I'm working with people, again, specifically with addiction, they're actually not okay with who they are. Can you speak to how a person can develop a more positive um, connection to who they are? Because sometimes, again, in addiction, maybe they've lied, maybe they have destroyed relationships. And so when they think about sitting with themselves, a lot of thoughts come, but they're not positive thoughts, right? How did you kind of reconcile that I like who I am? How did you get to that place? Because I want you to speak to that, because I hear that a lot when it comes to people who are struggling with addiction because of loneliness. And then I don't want to be alone because, again, of all of the thoughts that come through my head. I'd love to hear your perspective.
So I would say it's okay to get help, right? Whether that's going to Alcoholics Anonymous, going to Narcotics Anonymous, going to a therapist or a counselor, finding someone that you can confide in, right? So that you can, for me, it was journaling. I became a writer. Like I would write and write and write for hours and just pour myself out, right? Because the more I just held on to all those thoughts and all those feelings, I couldn't see clearly. I couldn't hear clearly. Sometimes people need medication. There are
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you need that, right? Because in your addiction, in your, trauma, whatever you're experiencing, it's like you're in a brain fog.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I felt. It was a brain fog. I could not see clearly. I could not hear clearly. And so as I, started on my sobriety journey, writing, I used to say writing was my therapy. Like I would pour myself out on a sheet of paper. And so for me, getting those thoughts out that, are not going to consume your mind so
Mm-hmm.
that you can really, hear God, so that he can help you walk through, this journey, or so that you can just function, so you can function, because a lot of times you just have so much going on in your head. And that is why you go to drinking. That is
Mm-hmm.
why you go to, trying to escape, because you just don't know how to do that. So I would say it's getting the help. It is, finding the thing that works for you. Like I said, writing worked for me. Maybe it's going for walks for someone else. It's exercising. It's doing those little things. And then starting with 10 minutes by yourself, right? Turning off the
Mm-hmm.
TV, sitting with yourself, and just, enjoying your own company. Like I said, no kidding. You could ask anybody in my family. I was afraid of the dark for years, for years. And, it wasn't until I really started to sit with myself and be okay with who God created me to be and enjoying that personal time that I was like, oh, all this stuff, that's not who I am. That's not
Yeah.
who I am.
So I'm glad you finished that. My next question goes right into that. What did you learn about yourself through the journaling, through kind of going, that's not who I am. Who am I? What did you learn about Kim as you were walking through this sobriety journey?
I learned that I do enjoy being alone, right? I do enjoy my quiet time. I even in my vehicle, I don't even turn on the radio. I don't know if I put something on, it's going to be an audio book or nothing at all, just silence. I learned that I am creative. Right?
Hmm.
Something that I started sobriety journey was making the mocktails, right? Creating drinks that were alcohol free. That was something that I started doing on my journey. And so it was learning that I'm creative, learning that I enjoy my time with myself, learning I don't have to do it by myself. God will help me. He will direct me. Um, let's see. I think those are a few things that I've learned on this journey.
So are you you talked about your mocktail experience. So what
Mhm.
helps you to get that off? Because you told me it was kind of birthed out of your own experience. How has that been, getting from going from, you know, trying not to drink to saying I still like this aspect? How do I channel that into something positive? So tell me about your transition into the mocktail experience, CEO.
So I go like even to a holiday party, right, or to a wedding reception, and all I would get was like a Sprite, right, and it was just like this is boring.
Mm,
Like I want a pretty drink too, right? And so I would come home and just play around with juices, sodas, different flavors, stuff like that. Because I was like, there's no reason why I can't have a
mhm.
pretty drink, why I can't, you know, enjoy holding a nice drink while I'm having a conversation or whatever, and it not be alcohol based. And I realized that there are a lot of people, right? There are some people who tried my mocktails and realized they don't even care that much for alcohol. They
Mm.
actually like all the other parts of the drink, of the mixed drink, right?
So Kim, how did you overcome the shame
So
or any guilt from the past?
I didn't want to judge.
Uh-oh. Say that again.
So, how did I overcome shame and guilt
Mhm.
from the past? That was part of it, was through prayer, but also some of it has been here recently since being connected to our community in our circle. But before that, when it was Relentless with Pastor Shun, um, walking through that, the healing that we've done in that community has been tremendous, because you don't always realize what you're still holding on to
Mhm.
until you are in a place, a safe space where you are
Mhm.
given permission to walk out those things, right? And so for some people, it may be finding a community like Inner Circle. For someone else, and right, it might be both, getting a good counselor or a therapist, because there's been things that I knew I couldn't walk out on my own, so I had to reach out and get help to walk off those things with someone. So yeah, definitely getting someone who can help you to walk out those things, ways that you can learn manage your thinking, ways that you can learn to forgive yourself, right? Forgive myself. Um, I had to forgive myself. I had to forgive, my mom. I had to forgive different people. And so I think when you hold on to that unforgiveness, when you're unwilling to do the not so pretty work of walking those things out, that's when it's harder to maintain your sobriety or your freedom.
Was there anything that you heard through the journey that was like, this was a pivotal moment for me? Um, that just kind of, I won't say turned it around, but really unlocked some things for you as far as insight or mindset shifts.
I think when I realized that my mom experienced a lot of trauma
Hmm.
that she didn't deal with. Um, that when I realized that, she is a person too, she experienced a lot of things, that opened up a lot for me. That unlocked a lot. And then I'll say, doing this through this journey, there's always going to be something that unlocks another part of us, right?
Mhm.
So it's like we never really stop healing, we never really stop growing. Actually, just when I was reflecting about this interview the other day, I realized that I actually had like abandonment issues. I had
Mm.
never thought about that. I had never thought about that until I started thinking about, my sobriety journey. And it was like, wow. So there's always something to learn about yourself. There's always another, way that we could shift or heal.
Now, the counselor in me has to go a little deeper. When you
Mhm.
say, I realized my mom had her own stuff, how was that a door for you? What was it about that that really made you go, okay, this means something for me? The fact that I can recognize that she had her own trauma. How did that bring some clarity or insight for you?
That helped me to see that what she was doing wasn't being judgmental. She
Mm,
just didn't know how to articulate, right? So we often say that our parents do the best that they can with the tools that they have, right? And she didn't have the tools, counseling, therapy, that kind of thing was
right.
it. She was born in 1943. That was not a thing, right? And so it was recognizing, especially now that I've gone through so much healing and I'm learning how to identify things quicker and heal quicker, I'm able to look back and see, wow, she really was doing the best that she could with what she had. And
Mm.
so that helped me to, have more compassion and have more empathy for her in the way she was trying to mother me and parent me the best way that she knew how.
So what I hear then is I'm angry, or I was angry with her. And then now that I look back, I see it from a different perspective. And some of that anger that I had to quote unquote forgive was actually not even, the way I was seeing it at the time.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So these abandonment issues, talk about that. How did you, when that stuff comes up, obviously alcohol is no longer your way of handling tough times. What happens when those types of issues come up? How do you handle them now as opposed to, when you were drinking?
hmm So a couple of, I think it might have been two of your episodes ago, I can't remember, but you talked about having a plan,
Mm,
right? And so when so I have a plan, right? When I am triggered, when I have those moments, I immediately allow myself to feel whatever it is, right? I give myself the freedom to feel it. If that means I have to cry, I cry. If that means I'm going to go journal, right? Because that's my thing, then I journal. And then I say, okay, God, what do I do with this? Right? What do I
mhm,
do with this? And so for me in that moment, I had to do the forgiveness exercise again, right? I did that forgiveness exercise for, my mom, for my dad, for, whoever came up in that moment. And then I made a decision that, okay, I don't have to feel that anymore, right? I know that I'm chosen by God. I know that I was wanted. I know that I'm loved. And so I don't have to feel that. Even though that's been revealed to me, I don't have to be in that place. So I think a big part is having that plan because there's always going to be something
mhm.
that's revealed to us. There's going to be something that happens in our lives that's going to trigger us. There's going to be something that may cause us to feel anxious. There's always going to be something. So I would definitely go back to when you said have a plan.
Kim, I love that because so many people don't have a plan, number one. But the first thing you talked about was being able to feel it. And I see often where people are really scared to feel it. They are terrified that if they open
Mhm.
themselves up to feel whatever that feeling is, it is going to be this floodgate and they can't turn it off, whether that is tears or just going down. How did you learn to sit in the discomfort of things you may have recognized about yourself, but also learn how to, you talked about forgiveness, but how did you learn to forgive yourself and not avoid sitting in that discomfort?
So I read an article a couple years ago. So a lot of this is within just like 8 or so years, right? That I've been, really aware of feelings, emotions, forgiveness, all that kind of stuff. But I read people said emotion only lasts 90 seconds, right? And so I don't know how true that is. What I was I sat with that, right? I said, so an emotion only lasts 90 seconds, and anything after that, I'm choosing. So I'm not a doctor. I don't even know if that's true, but that resonated with me, right? And so what I started doing was allowing myself whatever I had to feel, whether that was for 5 minutes, whether that was for an hour, whether that was I've lost a loved one, I'm going to allow myself, a week or so to feel what I'm feeling. And then I am going to move forward the best that I know how. And so I think as part of a plan, it's knowing that I can choose to feel what I'm feeling. I can give myself permission to do that, but I don't have to stay here.
Mm, that's good. One of the things I tell people when we're working on like relapse prevention plans are number one, knowing what your triggers are, right? Because the first thing you said or earlier, you talked about, I had to stop going certain places, hanging with certain people because I knew I would be triggered to want to drink. So people have to be aware of what are your triggers. Those triggers can be emotional. If I get anxious, I want to drink. If I get sad, so knowing these things is a part of the plan, right? Your self-awareness of this triggers me. How do I deal with it? I don't necessarily have to always avoid all the triggers because sometimes you can't avoid all the triggers. But once it comes, I know that it's a thing. How am I going to deal with it? So identifying the triggers, identifying ways to handle the trigger. So the coping with the triggers is the second part. So identifying your triggers, identifying your coping strategies. But the other part a lot of people miss out on is identifying your support system. Who do I have that I can call? You talked about it a little earlier, that I can just be my rawest self with and know that it's a safe place. Tell me about your environment, how your environment helped you in the recovery, and maybe even how your environment hurt you or hindered you in any way.
So for me, my environment, I was very intentional about my environment not hurting me,
Mm,
right? So I knew who my safe people were. I knew that there were family member houses that I could go to and it was a safe place. I knew that if I was triggered or something, I could go and cry my eyes out to my husband. Like I was very aware of who my safe people were and
mm,
are, right? So that I don't just go anywhere, right? And so I think that's part of my plan. That is
mhm.
definitely part of my sobriety plan is knowing who my safe people are, who I can be 100% Kim with, um, and using them, right? We can
Mhm.
know who our people are, but
Yeah.
sometimes we can choose to not use them because we'd rather just go do that thing that we know we shouldn't do.
Right.
And so it's not, right? It's not just knowing that, a safe environment, it's allowing yourself to be vulnerable enough to use them.
I love that. And I think that is a huge part, the vulnerability. A lot of people will not. We talked
Mhm.
about kind of that thing that keeps people from being able to say I have an addiction because I don't want to say I'm that low. But also there is that big blockade for a lot of people who don't want to be vulnerable around other people. They don't want them to see that they are weak. How do you speak to someone who struggles with vulnerability?
Mm, it's necessary.
Mm,
It is necessary for you to be vulnerable. And it just goes back to the safe people in your life. You don't have to be vulnerable with everyone, right? You don't have to be vulnerable with all of Facebook and all of TikTok. You don't have to be vulnerable with everyone, but you need to be vulnerable with someone. You
mhm,
have to have someone that you can be vulnerable with. And so it doesn't necessarily have to be your mom because she's your mom or your siblings because they're your siblings, right? It needs to be someone that you know is not going to be judgmental. That, if you're a believer, they're also a believer, right? Their fruit shows that they're going to give you wise counsel. Like those are the people that you need to allow yourself to be vulnerable.
Now, Kim, did you ever go through any program? Like, did you go to AA meetings or anything like that? Or was it outside of those kind of means for you?
No, I never went to AA, but I'm not opposed to it. If I ever felt like there was a time in my life, even right now, where I felt like, if I were to feel like, oh man, maybe I can't continue to do this on my own,
Hmm.
or maybe I can't continue to do this the way God is directing me to, then I would definitely be open to getting outside help.
Yeah, I love that. Um, I was talking actually to a client, and I was basically sharing how we have to allow our mind to really to be humble when you're dealing with really anything, not just addiction, right? Because oftentimes
Mhm.
we think we're better than a certain situation, and I'm not saying we aren't, right? I'm not. Yeah, I'm better than living beneath the standard that God has created for me to live. But what I'm saying is sometimes we have to say, I actually need help. And it's okay for me to reach out
Mhm.
and get help. It's okay for me to say, I'm struggling with this thing. Even if my struggle
Mhm.
looks very different from someone else's struggle. My struggle may, like we were talking, you never got to the place, or at least from my understanding, where you were under a bridge and homeless.
Mhm.
And, your life by most accounts probably looks pretty like she's doing well. She's functioning, but you knew I need that alcohol to go to sleep. You knew I need that alcohol if I'm out and about with friends. You knew that that was kind of your crutch for dealing with emotions. And so that's what I want to say to the people that may be watching or struggling. Maybe other people can't see it, but if you know you can't sleep without alcohol or get up and function without it or maintain friendships or go to work without a little sip or whatever, it's time for you to say, hey, maybe I don't um, meet the criteria as far as I'm on that bottom level and people can tell I'm struggling, but I want to live my best life and kind of following Kim's path as far as, hey, even I don't have to get to the bottom before I realize I want to get some help. Kim, I want you to speak to anyone who may be struggling right now. What advice or feedback would you give to someone who's kind of teeter tottering if they even want to begin the journey or they're at the beginning of their journey?
Mhm. I would say to be honest with yourself, right?
Mhm.
Even when we can lie to everyone else, it's important that we are honest with ourselves, right? Be honest with yourself about, like, you said, you need that drink. You can't go out and be social without a drink. You don't know how to just have one. You you have to wind down with some wine, but then it turns into the whole bottle, right? Be honest with yourself and where you are at. And it's okay to say, okay, maybe this has gone too far, or maybe this is going
Mhm.
too far. I'm not saying that nobody should ever have a drink. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying if you recognize that it may not be, what you've always thought was normal, then it may be time for you to really take a step back and say, okay, where can I make changes? And if you can't make those changes on your own, then it's okay to say, hey, I need some help. And if that help is reaching out to a friend that you trust, right? It may not necessarily be checking yourself into a rehab or going to your first AA meeting. It may just be being vulnerable with
Mhm.
someone you can trust and saying, hey, I think there may be a problem here. Can you help hold me accountable? Can you come over and let's talk through this? It may be, reaching out to a licensed counselor or therapist. It may be reaching out to your pastor for some guidance. Whatever it is, just know that you're not alone. There is always someone who is there that you.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest thing is thinking that you have to do it by yourself.
Oh,
You have to face all of this alone, and you don't, right? You do not have to face it alone. You're not by yourself. There's family, friends, whoever that you can trust that you can reach out to when you're ready, but you have to be honest with yourself.
no, I think that is a great, great starting point for anyone. Hey guys, if you're watching, I want you to ask any questions that you may have. Let us know if you have any comments or questions as we are wrapping up. Kim, I thank you again for taking the time to share your journey, to share all of those things. I didn't know a lot of that. And so I appreciate you again for your vulnerability and again, willingness to help. Tell us more about how people could reach you for the mocktail experience, all of that stuff. Give us some ways that we could connect to you, or maybe even someone who may reach out and have a question concerning their journey for sobriety.
Yes. So I'm on Facebook, and I'll drop all this stuff after the live. I can drop my website. So if anyone's interested in purchasing my recipe
What
books,
is your website?
so it's Kimberly N
Mhm.
Dennis.com.
KimberlyNDennis.com.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I'm
And
just
so,
going to put that in.
yep. So there's also a way to contact me on that, as well as I have a way to sign up for my email address, email list, because I will have a new mocktail book coming out soon. So I'll have to drop that one in because it's a long one. But yeah. Oh, and then Facebook, Kimberly Dennis on Facebook. If you want to send me a message, you want to talk through some stuff that you didn't feel comfortable saying in the chat, that's perfectly fine. I'm going to say if you need a coach or a counselor, Tenetria Williams is amazing.
Thank you.
But yeah, that's how you can contact me if you need to.
Well, thank you again, everybody. Go to Kimberly N. Dennis. I have tasted some of Kim's drinks. They are really good, y'all. I'm not a drinker, so I just wanted to taste good, and it hit all the right spots. It was yummy, and they're pretty. Like she, I don't know why women care about that so much, but it was pretty. So it tastes good, and it was really pretty. And you always present in such a great way. So if you're having an event and you want someone to to serve some mocktails, reach out to Kim. She does an amazing job. And I think, again, that's one of the things that I hear a lot when people are dealing with walking through their sobriety because they say it's holiday time, which means what? The office is having a party and they're having drinks. And
Mhm.
there's nothing to drink. So I go ahead and I get one so I don't look out of place. And then I go down a spot, or I go and I feel really anxious because I can't drink. And then the anxiety gets me and all of these different things. Right. And so the service itself is needed, not just because the drinks are good, but I think it really can help people to maintain
Mhm.
their sobriety. If you guys have enjoyed this, I don't see any questions in the comments. If you guys have enjoyed this, please give Kim some hearts, give some fire, tell her thank you for joining us. We are again entering into our holiday season, and so I thought this would be a really good topic to talk about. And plus, it's just something, regardless whether it's holidays or not, that people deal with. And I always want to keep topics that are relevant to what people are experiencing. So again, thank you so much. Let me see some hearts. Let me see some fire for Kim. She did an amazing job. I knew you would. I love you. I appreciate you. Again, I appreciate your journey. And if you are looking for a coach or a therapist, depending on what's going on with you, let me know. Reach out to me. You can, of course, always reach out to my office number. It is 470-410-9790. You can also email me at tenetria@gmail.com. And that is on your screen, Tenetria, TENETHREA @gmail.com. To say what's going on. I'm seeing hearts and fire and all of this stuff. People are appreciating you. You did great, Kim. Thank you so much. Do you have any closing comments before we end?
Thank you for having me. Excuse me. I love you. I appreciate you. And thank you for having this platform that brings awareness. It gives us an opportunity to hear from those who have walked out these things. I appreciate that. Just want to remind those that are watching that you are never alone. Your community, your tribe, they matter. They are there to support you. So allow them.
Oh, I love it. Yes. Allow them. You have to be willing to be vulnerable and allow people to help you, because help is actually available. So again, thank you. I will be back next Thursday, same time, 12 o'clock Central Standard Time, for another episode of Minding My Mental Health. I appreciate you guys for joining. I know we're at the end. Share the video anyway so people can catch the replay, and I will see you guys next week. Bye-bye.